And today I have Jaymie Paternoster, owner and brand ambassador of Elevate Inspection Group, with me today on the Onward and Upward show. Jaymie's been in the home inspection arena since 2010 and started Elevate Inspection Group 5 years ago. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jaymie.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Holly. This is fun.
So fun. And obviously, I love the real estate space as well as you do. So I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to acknowledge that we actually have more in common than I realized when we first met. You also have a podcast and you're faith-based with your content. Is that something you're also currently growing?
Oh, it is. It's actually very new. Not my faith. I met the Lord when I was 30. So
Right.
I'll tell you my age. It was 16 years ago.
Nice.
But the podcast is very new, being in the home inspection space as a female. It's been a lot of fun. But one of the things that I had a difficult time doing was expressing my faith. I didn't want to be a squishy Jesus person and then also a technical home inspector. It just didn't mix in my mind. And then the Lord gave me permission. And I said, you know what? I know a lot of awesome people like Holly, and I want to start talking about it to the masses. So I've prayed about it for a super long time. And now I have this podcast called Elevate Your Mind State, where I have conversations with people in the real estate industry, just about real life and real talk and real faith.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. And what is the name of the podcast again?
Elevate Your Mind State.
Okay, perfect. So we can find that on YouTube as well and check it out, because
Yes.
we definitely are going to want to do that. Okay. So, and you just alluded to this, but I also have to acknowledge that the home inspection space is highly male dominated, which kudos to you. You have created a very successful company in spite of that. What made you decide to go into the home inspection world?
That's a good question. I think I have a different answer each time I talk about it. I really loved playing with Legos when I was a kid. So I liked to build space and understand the function of them. I grew up, I finally went away to college, and my major was facility management. I loved understanding how spaces functioned. I don't care about fabrics and color. I'm like really bad at that. But to understand, for instance, an office space and what they needed where and who was in that space and how did it need to operate and how do they need to get around each other and what best suited them. And then a couple of years in the commercial industry, I got just bored of commercial spaces and planning someone else's space. I met a home inspector and they asked me, and this was 15 years ago, have you ever thought of being a home inspector? And at that point, HGTV wasn't really a big thing, Mike Holmes and all these home inspectors on TV. All I knew was that it was basically like a retired builder and a clipboard. And I was like, that doesn't sound interesting to me at all. But about 15 years ago is when the entire inspection industry changed and things started being digital. And it was really about communicating the house, communicating the space and the function of it to a person that was buying it. I mean, it's always been that way, but to a person that was purchasing the home. And that was so enticing to me because I loved digging into a space, digging into, at this point, a house and understanding how it functioned. And then being able to give that super valuable information to a person because it just was what it was. And then they were grateful for that information. And I thought, well, this is great. So that's how I fell into home inspection. And I brought joy with me. That was one of the things that I didn't realize I could do, is just be exactly who I am and come into this space and use the software and technologies that are available now and just be a relatable person sharing information. It's like one of my most favorite things to do.
I love it. And there's a lot. So there's so many questions I have, but I'd love to start first with, it sounds like, because here's the thing. When I got into real estate, I didn't know much at all about houses and how they, the inner workings of homes, I should say. I just loved, like you said, I loved going into them. I did love looking at the spaces and the colors and all of that. I loved seeing different homes and just loved it. But I had to learn through inspections. And that's how I learned. I would follow the inspectors around and I would just be like, okay, I'd ask questions, right? I was asking probably more questions than the buyers were because I wanted to learn, because as I'm walking through houses, buyers are asking me questions. And now I know a lot, right? A lot more than I did 10 years ago when I got started. When I was married, we had a family business in construction. So I had a little bit of like foundation background with concrete and all that good stuff. But other than that, it was like, there's a lot to learn. How did you really do that? Because there's a lot, like a lot.
What's cool is when I started as a home inspector, I lived in New Orleans, and Louisiana is the second most difficult state to pass the state board of home inspectors license. Texas is super difficult. But I had to go through kind of an apprenticeship, went to school, I got my bachelor's, I got my master's degree. And then I come into this space and it was just an apprenticeship. I didn't need any of that. So with Louisiana State Board of Home Inspectors, it's a really rigorous licensing program. And I just had to pass the test. So I had some book study that I have to do. And there's programs out there now that many people can just go and take book study or online courses. And then I was in person. And the company that hired me to be a home inspector, they had their own program. So I had to, have 400 hours of classroom time. I had to have 400 hours of following somebody else. And then once they thought I had the right questions following them, they followed me and I got to start doing the home inspection. And then they allowed me to start talking with the clients, because you don't want to say something that you can't take back, you know? So they were like,
For sure.
just observe for 10 weeks. And then they got to observe me. And when they thought I was good enough, they let me fly. They let me do my first one alone. And I think that was a phenomenal way to become a home inspector. Michigan doesn't have a licensing requirement for home inspectors, which I think is unfortunate. But I also think that it's just educating real estate agents and clients that want to hire a home inspector. Like, listen, these are the questions that you might want to ask somebody when you're hiring a home inspector, because there's no really platform that they have to follow in order to just go out and write a report for someone. Like errors and omissions insurance and business insurance and the licensing and the continuing education, just like a real estate agent. So we have to keep up with that. So that same like apprenticeship, if you will, that I took is what I do now with our team. They have to go through so many hours and so much book time. And it's follow me, follow you, let you go.
Absolutely. So tell us about your team. How many people do you have working with you?
So I recently shrunk in order to grow. At one point, we had 9 people on our team. Well, it was only a couple of years ago, right around 2018 to 2022, I think. We had 5 home inspectors, which was awesome. And just a few years ago, within this last year, I scaled back intentionally. We had to cut the fat, if you will, in order to really live by the culture that we say we have. You say that you are something, we have integrity and we treat you like our family, and we have a concierge customer experience, and we have to be consistent with that. And so we recently exited a few home inspectors in order to keep that integrity.
Hey,
so right now we have a team of 5. Yeah, it was a hard thing to do, but one of the reasons that I decided to cut was because I was suffering, like, personally. There's a lot that you take on as a business owner, first of all. And then when you have to throw leader on top of that, it all started back in, I think 2013 was the first time I owned a home inspection company. So I was an employee for 3-ish years. And then I started my own move from New Orleans to the Midwest. There's a difference between being a really good home inspector or a really good real estate agent, wearing all the hats, and you've got this like streamlined process. But once you start growing, or once you start getting a really good reputation, the first thing is to say, oh my gosh, I need another home inspector. So then you go and get another home inspector on your team. Did I need another home inspector? Like, I could have just stayed a one-woman shop and raise my prices. I don't know. But you get another home inspector, and then you teach them to do a really good job. And now all of a sudden you have a business, and then you keep growing and you keep growing. And in our technical space, there are like 2 big coaching groups in the US for home inspectors to get together to say, okay, we run a business. There's a leadership team now. We now have a budget that we need to follow. Like, what does that even look like? There's 2 organizations in the US that are present for us to be able to mastermind that kind of stuff, because otherwise you just think you're inventing the wheel from the beginning. And so I quickly found out that I had to be part of an organization like that in order to understand, like, yeah, I'm a great home inspector and I love this space, but there's things that I wasn't prepared for. So it was awesome to be able to have that tool. But only a couple of years ago did I still wore all the hats of, like, the marketing person and the payroll girl and the bookkeeper and the home inspector and the one that showed up to volunteer everywhere and sponsor this and, bring the joy here. And after a while, I was like, I don't know what I like, or do I like any of it? I'm not sad about it anymore, but for a while I was just burnt out. And I didn't know that that's what it was. And it was the darkest, like most awful feeling ever. And I didn't think I could talk about it because I'm supposed to be this, joy-filled customer experience home inspector who's married and has 3 children and is supposed to spend time with the Lord every day and be completely calibrated. And I didn't feel that way at all. So that's when I started to take a good look at my calendar, my team, and how we were being purposeful and being the people that we say we are inside. We've always provided customer experience outside. That's always been a thing.
Right.
But inside, it became toxic. And as a business owner, that's always your fault. Like it just is. It starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was oozing on to everybody and I had to just like recalibrate. And it was a good season. It was terrible. It was hard, but it was good. It's necessary. And so to answer your question, I have a team of 5.
Okay. That's amazing.
We're starting over with really good intention. It's good.
It is. And I'm glad that you brought up, people do, I think, especially when you're in business for yourself, as a realtor, I have the same issue. It's like you're so concerned sometimes with putting things out there that may make you look weak or, especially as women, right? And you're, like I said, you're in a male dominated field, which already, you have to work against that perception, right? Women, we can do everything. And so again, you don't want to look like, oh gosh, I have to show no fear, right? No humanity. And what I found is people do connect better with you when they can see you're a real person, right? And like you said, you're being open and you're talking about your business, that you had to make those business decisions to scale back, to move forward, because the most important thing that I'm hearing you say is quality is the most important over quantity.
Yes.
That's how you really create relationships in our industry and with people, being relationship based so that they remember you, especially with agents. They're going to always want to work with you because they had a great experience. You didn't freak their clients out, right? There's going to be things that pop up, but it's all that relationship and the trust factor. So you alluded to a few things, but when you got into that dark place, what would you say really helped you pull yourself out of that and really kind of just rebalance, like your word, I like recalibrate everything? What was it that you did?
The first thing I did was get a coach.
Okay.
And I went to a good friend of mine and said, and who is a business coach, and he's an OP at a really big office here, a real estate office here. But he became a really good friend, and I went to him, and I knew that he wasn't going to be my coach. I knew that just wasn't. It didn't feel right. But I was like, I don't know if I need someone like you. I don't know what you do, but I think I might need a therapist or maybe a business coach or maybe like an emotional coach. Like, I don't know what I need, but I need somebody. And he was like, that's a coach, Jaymie. That's like what we do. Mm-hmm. It's all areas of your life. Mm-hmm. I already had someone telling me how to create a budget, but it wasn't resonating with me because I was so overloaded with all the things that we do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I read so many leadership books and Who Not How and Dale Carnegie this and Gary Keller that. Like you can read so much, but you're overloaded with information. And I just didn't know where to start. He prayed about it and suggested Amy Osterbeck. Actually, she's in the industry, but she's a phenomenal coach. And one of the things that she specializes in is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
That's huge.
And it's huge. And I didn't know that was a thing. And I have a master's degree in communication. Right. I get people and I get the masks we wear and the seasons that we live through, but I had never heard of this. And it was just a phenomenon. And the very first time we met, I ended up, she coached me for about 2.5 years. And the very first time we met, she asked me all the things I was doing. And somewhere in here, I decided to take a part-time job with my church as like the director of connections, which was wonderful. And the Lord let me be in that season for about 9 months. And then I realized it was over. But who does that when you're overloaded? You take on a part-time job? Anyway.
Sounds about right.
So the first question, because you're like, surely I'll find peace.
Right.
Yeah, surely I'll find peace in this, or surely I'll make an impact in that. But it's not about piling things on. It's about taking a deep breath and just only putting the things on your platter that you can make a really big impact in. So the first time Amy and I met, she asked me all the things I did. And then she says, okay, is any of this serving you? And I thought, nobody's ever asked me that before. And also I wasn't aware that I was allowed to only do things that served me. And like, what did that even mean? So it was huge. And from that point on, it took a long time for me to understand that I have full permission to run my life in a way that serves me and my family. And oh, by the way, I own a business and it needs to get the best of me. So she helped me work through which of the things in my life do I even enjoy, and how can I do those things in abundance? And then the things that I'm just either not good at or frankly just don't enjoy doing as much, how can I find the right people, get them on the bus, and then put them in those seats so we can all just like go the same direction really quickly and really well? And that was a new phenomenon. But that's how I understood that, was a coach.
That's amazing. And it's leverage, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it all. And when you try to do it all, things get missed or things get dropped because we're only have so much time in the day. And I love that. And I am a huge proponent of coaching as well. I've been involved in so many different coaching programs, and that's how we grow. And you have to continue to grow. And I love you call them your 5 pillars. I was looking at them. I'm like, these could also be called the 5 F's, right? Your faith, fitness, family, finances, and future, right? So how did did you come up with those through coaching? Was that something that
I did? Because one of the things, so one of the books I read is The One Thing. Gary Keller has 9 areas of your life. And then in the coaching organization that I'm part of, Inspector Empire Builder, we have what's called the one sheet, and we fill it out just as a big family every year. And then we kind of recalibrate throughout the year. And it's got 8 things on our one sheet, like 8 areas of life. And I was like, I didn't resonate with all the areas because I found myself just focusing a lot on business. Like, what are my business goals and my money goals in business and our adventure goals in business? And I thought, well, I kind of just see business as one bucket because it's just what I do. Like, what do they say? I don't live to work. I work to live. Like, it's just what provides for my family. So, and provides for the families of those that work on our team. And I have to treat it as such because I often allowed the business to just like go like a big blob, like consume me. And then you're trying to figure out how to do life while you're like stuck in the bubble of business. And so I learned, okay, just get out of it and like keep my business, keep it at an arm's length away. And that worked. So when I was looking at the pillars that were important to me in my life, I thought, well, I'm just going to put all this business in one big bucket. And I ended up calling it future, because it's what brings money into my household. It's how I gain a lot of friendships, because in this industry, you meet people often, and that tends to be who your friends are, which is wonderful, or at least some of your friends. And then the rest of them, I thought, okay, now I can really look at my life as what's important. And that's why faith was first. And then my fitness has to be second, because I can't pour into anybody else unless I'm right. So first God, then me. And fitness doesn't mean like working out. I mean, I do, but it's like, what do I put into my body? How much do I sleep?
right?
Am I on the right supplements? It's all the things having to do with like my body. Some people call that self-care. I suppose that's true. And then my family. And then our finances. I learned that the hard way. And then my future, which is like, adventure and planning for business and planning, I don't know, like moving to a different neighborhood. It's just anything, the overflow from the 4 most important things in my life.
Right. I love that. And I think it's a great way to stay centered and keep your priorities in order. And when you feel like you're getting off kilter, you can go back. It's just like you're due north, right? Like, what is out of whack here? Where did I go off? Which one of these is not getting what it needs to get? So I love that. Well, I want to jump into like your actual work as an inspector, because there's so much we can talk about there.
Let's do it.
So how do you handle, okay, you're in the inspection, walking through, and there's issues that pop up. There's always going to be things. It's going to be 30 pages long, right? I always tell buyers, this is not a to-do list for the seller. This is what this house is. And we're only going back if there's like something that we didn't know, we couldn't see, and it's going to cost some money, right? This is an issue. How do you handle that when you come up with one of those, I call them big ticket items, when you've got to let the buyer know and the agent, and I know that how that must feel in your head. You're like, I have to do my due diligence to this buyer who hired me, and I also have a relationship with this agent. So there's like a little balancing act there. I can only imagine, being you and doing that. So how do you handle that when something pops up and it needs to be addressed, or at least need to give the information to the client?
first we just take a deep breath, and then everything is in the report and everything is color coded. So like if it's a big ticket item, and usually big ticket items for us, it's red in the report. Like there's no missing it, But the big ticket items for us are either safety issues, which sometimes don't cost a lot of money. It's like, do your safety outlets work, or are they even present? And those are what, $15 a piece. You know what I mean? That would be a big ticket item because it saves your life. So you need them,
Gotta
right?
have a GFC.
But the other kind is, and the other kind of a big ticket item is something that literally will cost a lot of money. Like you didn't realize that you needed a new roof, or your foundation has some issues. So we just have to tell the truth. We, as a home inspector, gets hired because they know something that the client wants to know. So the last thing we need to do as home inspectors is walk into the house with a puffed up chest and we're like, the roof is shot. I know more than you. Well, yeah, you do. That's why you got hired. So let's just be like a real person about it and say, guys, I just got out of the attic. Or let me show you a few pictures. There's just a lot of mold up there. Or it's going to say organic growth. If you want
organic growth. Yep. That's what it says. Yep.
Yeah.
And everyone goes,
want us to do,
is that mold? And you're like,
yeah. So that's why we say it that way.
We can fix it.
That's right. But you got Rockstar Holly over here, and she's probably got a really good mold remediation person. If not, we've seen a ton of them. We can give you information on who to take care of it. But it's a house, so anything can be taken care of. These pictures will be in your report. Do you want to see it? The ladder's still up. And like, well, let them take a peek if they want to. And then we put in the report, and they were like, okay, good. Do you have any questions? And sometimes they're like, and then we just stay there and talk to them a little bit longer.
Right.
Or the agent over and is like, yeah, I've got a guy. His name is George. He owns Attic Pros, and we'll just call him. They usually come on you know what I mean? Like you just take it.
George
and then we're like,
company.
Okay, yeah.
Sold the company to his nephew. Get his name.
He did.
He did. Yeah.
George, good for you, buddy.
George retired.
Good for
you. George. Everyone knew George.
The whole point of business.
He's awesome.
Good for you, George.
I just had to call not too long ago. Yeah.
Really?
Someone else answered.
But that's how you respond to that. And then, because like you don't wait till the end and go over all the bad things. That's awful.
Right.
One thing at a time. And then we go back and keep doing the inspection. But always come back and say, oh my gosh, you know what you have? And they're like, what? You've got a whole house fan. These things are awesome. I'll show it to you. Pop a window open, turn this guy on. It recirculates all the air on a beautiful day like this. So that's how we combat those like big ticket items too. We have to tell them what's great about the house.
I love that.
Because they might not know what's great. Hey, your bathroom vents go outside. You don't have a lick of mold in your attic. That's awesome.
Yes.
And then they get excited. So when they realize that the heating and cooling unit is a 1984 and now they have to plan to replace it in the not so distant future.
Right.
It doesn't hurt as hard.
Right.
Because the rest of the house has great stuff. And it's our job to balance the two. That's the art of it.
I love that because I think it is typically, a lot of inspectors will just come in, get to work, which is what we want, right? We don't want to be there all day, but, and just focus on what needs to be addressed. I love your approach to also pointing out some of the features that maybe, we didn't really focus in on, or, hey, the house has this, or, it's got a backup water system on the sump pump, right? And this is huge, those, I think that's amazing that you do that to try to, it's always like you said, we want to, it's like that sandwich. We want to give a compliment and then we give, something to work on and then another compliment, keep everybody calm.
I think that's right. And I think that's one of the reasons home inspection has gotten like an uncomfortable stigma over the years, is because in a real estate transaction, the agent often wants to know, okay, what is it that I might need to negotiate in these next few days? Mm-hmm. Which is wonderful. That's like you doing your due diligence for your client. And then the home inspector is like, I want to teach this person, like this client, this soon to be homeowner, everything about the house. Because the report isn't about the transaction. The report is a user's manual for the current condition and how to take care of it. And so it's a fine line of education to the client. So that's one of the reasons that we say, like, we call our company Elevate, is because we want to elevate the industry to say, listen, we're educators. We're giving you information to be able to close quickly. That's why we provide our inspection reports on site. We go through it with our agent and our client before we leave, because we want you to know that you're empowered with all the information before you leave. That's the transaction part for us. And we make it very clear by color coding items to say, okay, red is stuff that you have to take care of right away. Orange are things that might be on the back burner, but don't paint your bedrooms until these things are taken care of. Like, don't forget about them. And then blue is just regular maintenance. Clean the gutters, change the furnace filter, all that kind of stuff,
Get those
And
extenders
that's
on.
the transaction. Yeah.
I always see that on the reports. Add the extenders. It's like, I just start telling people now when we walk through, I'm like, they're going to need extenders. They're not that expensive. Home Depot. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
You're welcome. That's the education part. So then the rest of the report is really just for the client to know, okay, when we move in, this is how we take care of our house. So that's why that art, like that verbiage, going up to them regularly and saying, you've got this great thing going on, or, hey, this is going to need some work, because it's important for them to feel empowered with the house that they're about to spend a lot of money on.
Exactly. Like you've been really communicating really well. It's, you're there to be, I love user manual. I love that you're there to walk through and to be that expert and to basically dot the I's, cross the T's, answer some questions. And at the end of the day, it's like, this is just an informational based experience. And, like I said, everything can typically be fixed. There are a few times that I've had clients walk away for different reasons, but there have only been a handful. I know I wouldn't even need all my fingers to count in 10 years how many times I said, I don't recommend this home for you. Because I rarely will say that, but I can't in good conscience, right? Because I'll know these clients so well and I start to love them and we become friends and I care about their family. And I'm looking at this going, I know what your goals are. One situation I had, and I'll ask you about maybe some horror stories in a second, but I had a situation, I knew the client was a single dad with a 2-year-old and we got into the basement. We had walked through the house and I did tell him, I said, there's some issues here that I see. We could see that there had been water high up on the wall. And I said, there's been water in this basement. Like it had a situation. So he knew that going in. And I was like, okay, as long as there's not like crazy mold throughout the house, it's just in the basement. It can be, well, we got into like the drain tile situation with the sewer scope. And the drain tile was totally full with water. And the next step was going to be, it was going to start coming back into this house. And I just looked at him and I'm like, what they would need to do to fix this is a lot. I don't know if they would do it, but I don't know that I would even trust them to do it. And this is going to be really expensive. He's like, yeah. I'm like, you have a 2-year-old. Like could be a health situation. Right. So we walked away. What are maybe give us some fun horror stories or what's like maybe a funny story or anything you want to tell us about some experiences you've had in homes? Cause I know you've got to have a few doozies. You've been in the business a long time.
Well, one of the first thing that comes to mind is I actually saw it when I was in training. So years ago, so we're on the roof and yes, there's a chimney, but we also have to look inside to see, is there anything just inside the very top? We don't have to see all the way down, but like what's in there? We have to observe, right? There's thousands of items that we have to look at in the house. We look down, there's a plastic Santa Claus just in there, like cockeyed. So he couldn't fall all the way down. It's a plastic Santa. That's why you need a $15 rain cap. People just put a cap on the top of the chimney, Home Depot.
And they didn't know where Santa went. They just went up there to get it and they were like, Santa's just gone. They thought he blew away.
Did they not look?
That's
funny.
Scary and hilarious at the same time.
But people always think that their DIY jobs will hold up for like all of eternity. And oftentimes they just forget that they DIY'd it before they have time to call a contractor or save up money to call a contractor. So once there was a leak in the roof and instead of just getting a bucket, there was like an old bathtub, literally an old bathtub in the attic. So, some of those, it's not really a bungalow, but some of the older, like 100+ year old homes where the attic could literally be a third story,
Yes.
like a beautiful finished space, right? So they had a clawfoot tub up there and the leak at the roof, they had just dripping into the tub, but they had it cocked such a way that the drain was on the bottom. So they put a garden hose at the bottom of the tub and let that go out the soffit of the house. So I don't know how long it was up there, but the leak was not new, so it's one of those DIY things that I think they just forgot about, or maybe we're just really proud of and just let it go.
Oh my goodness.
The tub gets the leak. Yeah. But I think
that's something I would post.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll dig it
up.
Oh
my gosh, that's something I would totally post. It's funny.
Yeah, I used to have it in one of my classes.
Homeowner specials, we call those, right?
Yeah, homeowner special. I think that's probably it. It's rare that something is so funny that people do to their homes. I think otherwise it's just like cleanliness or not knowing how to take care of something.
Right.
we often go to our clients' houses just to check things out if they want us to, or even a one-off, like someone who's never worked with us before, but they're like, I have moisture on my walls and my air conditioner doesn't work. And they just have already trusted us, maybe like a family member or something. So they give us a call. So I've been out a couple of times to people's houses because they're just like, something's not right and I can't figure it out. And it just comes down to them not knowing they have a filter at their air conditioner that they need to change. And so that AC is like trying to suck the air in from the house and the filter is completely clogged, but the AC still produces condensation because it's trying to freeze, so it's blowing all this moisture into the house because it's working really hard. And all they had to do was change their filter and they just never knew. So a lot of the things that we find with a home inspection, it's my favorite thing in the whole world, not in a home inspection alone, but just anything in life is that light switch moment where someone didn't know something. They genuinely just didn't know. Maybe no one ever told them.
Right. There's a lot.
And I got to
No.
teach them something and now they know.
Yes.
And they feel so empowered. And it's like,
Filter.
yeah, filters are oh, it's so good. So that's like one of my favorite things. But the funny things, they're few and far between. It's a lot of education.
For sure. And I like that you brought that up, that someone called you just because they had a situational problem and they didn't have an answer, because not a lot of people know sellers can before they list. Now, not a lot of sellers do this, but if you have a situation where you feel like I would like to have someone come in and do like a quick run through of my home, just some major systems, like you said, and let me know, is there anything major? Because, funny story for me, like last summer was the year of the bats. Okay. I made a joke. I'm like, everyone's got bats in the belfry. Okay. And it's not abnormal, especially when you've got a lot of trees and, they get in, they literally get in, like they're contortion artists. They can just get in. Right. So I would say I had 5 listings in 1 month that every time I was like, it's going to be bats. I know it's going to be bats. So I feel like I had it on my mind so much that one night I went to sleep and my wall, I'm in my bed and in my wall, I'm hearing scratching. I'm hearing it. And I knew right away. I was like, there's bats. So I freaked out, of course. And I called and they came out and the attic pros. And it wasn't a big deal. It was like a level 4 on 1 to 10, but because I have huge spruce trees behind me and I've seen the bats. I've seen them, if I'm outside and they start coming out, I'm like, time to go in. But they came in, they've sealed everything, fixed it all. So I just have to disclose that, yes, I had bat remediation, but it was crazy. It's like, because of the whole guanum and all that situation. But sellers can do that. They can, to mitigate maybe something that might freak a buyer out. I had a buyer walk once because there was radon and it needed a radon system, which is it's silly. Like if you're in an area that needs radon systems, like you're going to need it someday. And the seller's like, I'll put one in, no big deal. But the buyer got so freaked out. They're like, nope, I don't even want to be here anymore. So it's like, sometimes it makes sense for a seller to have you come in, do a couple things. Oh, this Washington Township, big area for radon. So let's just do the radon test. If you need one, we'll put in a system, right? So if the buyer doesn't even have to be like faced with that. A lot of times they're stressed out and they're
100%.
first time home buyers. And no matter what we do to tell them, this is okay, they just freak right out.
Yeah, it's okay. We call that a safety inspection.
I like that.
Pre-listing inspection, whatever we want to call it, but we call it a safety inspection. We do it for anybody, but it's just the 4 points. It's just the major systems, because when someone's getting ready to list their home, they know that window latch doesn't work. They can replace it if they want to, but that's not what you call a system, right? So we'll come into the house and look at the 4 major systems. So the entire envelope of the house, right? Siding, roof, attic, foundation, basement, slab, crawl space, whatever. So that's one. All the major electric. So are those safety outlets actually there and do they work? And then what's the panel look like? And is it safe? Like, inside the panel, are the wires appropriately sized? Is there any sparking or arcing? And then plumbing. So water heater and basically all the plumbing. Is anything leaking? Did you know that your water heater was leaking? Some people just don't ever look at it, right? So those 4 major systems. And then there's the sewer scope and the radon test. It's funny, when you get ready to sell a house, we get sellers telling us, well, I don't want to run the sewer scope because I have to put it on the disclosure.
It's true.
Something's wrong, right?
It's true. You do have to disclose. Thank you for bringing that up. Whatever you do find out, you do have to disclose if you're not going to fix it, or even that you've had it fixed. Yep.
That's right. But I think that safety inspection is really good for people that, well, first of all, just want a once over on their house. You don't even have to be getting ready to sell it. What if you've lived there for 20 years and you just haven't looked at things in a long time? We can tell you about walls, ceilings, and floors and there's stains on the hardwood, but you already know that you live there. But those four major systems are really big, and a lot of times people just overlook them. Heating and cooling. I don't think I said that. Heating and cooling. Well, so a lot of times people just don't look at that stuff.
And nobody wants to go into a crawl space except you. Like
Yeah,
that is my nightmare. Whenever I see them with the suit on, I can't physically breathe. When I see them, I'm like, I can't even watch them going into this space. Like, I'm like, I can't do that. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, there's some critters down there. And I'm like, dead, would never be able to do this. God bless you for doing it. That's just one thing where like, how did you, the first time, clearly you're okay with the small spaces issue, but like, how did you like first time down? Was it a thing, or were you just like, no big deal? I might have a rat down here and I'm going to be cool with that. Spiders in my face. Awesome.
It's just a job. I can't focus on that. So people are like, are there spiders? If you see a spider, tell me. And I'm like, I'm not going to look for them. Like,
yes, they're there. You're definitely going to be there. Yeah. It's a conflict.
But you just focus. It's just a job. It's just a really small attic. That's all. That's how you have to consider it. And it's really dirty, and there might be a ton of cobwebs. That's why you find a stick in the yard and you make your own cotton candy. You just kind of swirl all the cobwebs.
Make your own cotton candy. I'm going to remember that. That's going to stick with me.
But, yeah. But it is what it is. Just like any other part of the house, the crawl space, it just is what it is. We do our best not to use like the crawl bot. We do our best not to like use, because you see things when you are in person. That's why we like to walk on the roofs. Like you see things when you are in person and you can touch them and look at the angles and stuff. So yeah, it's super important, but we get over it quickly. You're like, it's cobweb. I'm going to shower when I get home anyway.
Yeah. Well, I like that you just brought that up, because you do have a crawl bot. You do have, I know there are some inspectors that are using a drone, and maybe there are some roofs that really are unstable or not unstable, but unsafe to be on the pitch, or maybe it's like the dead of winter or whatever. But I like that you don't do that, because I really, truly don't feel like just a drone is the best way to really take a look at that roof. Because like you had mentioned earlier, that's a big cost. There's a lot of issues, that can be with the flashing and all the things that I don't know the correct terms for. But I'm glad to hear that you actually get in there, because I do think some people take the easy way out. Technology is awesome, but it doesn't replace that human, portion of things where you're getting in there. You're like a little detective, like checking everything out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We have the tools just in case we need them, but it is never a default. Never. We were trained to look at them. And you can't touch and look at granules that close with a drone. So sometimes we have to, like, the house is just too large to walk on, or there's like an apartment building or something with zero access to the roof. A drone is helpful just for any glaring major problems. Sure. They can't get up close and personal to say, hey, all the granules are missing.
Right. Exactly. You can't feel it. And when you touch it and they start to disintegrate, and you're like, problem up here.
Yeah. So a drone is useful, but never a default. Same thing with the crawl bot. Robots are good, but it's never a default. And when the crawl spot is so little that we can't get our body in there, guess what's probably going to get stuck when you start motoring it in there on its big wheels? Like, if it gets stuck, who's going in after it? Got all the insulation falling down from the subfloor in the crawl space. Like, that crawl bot's getting stuck. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem. Then you really know that you have a problem. Oh my goodness. So let me ask you this. One of your pillars is future, and obviously you've already talked about that's your business. What are your future plans or goals with this business? Are you expanding? Are you, what are your thoughts? Where do you want to go in this space?
Ooh, that's good. One of the things that we know as a team is that we do want to continue to hire great inspectors. A lot of times in the past, we've hired inspectors that were already licensed and operating. They just didn't want to run their own business. They just want to go out and be a good inspector. So we brought them on that way, and that turned out wonderful. It was a win-win for everybody. And we've also hired inspectors that were just green, like no inspection experience at all, but experience in other jobs. Like I had one of our inspectors, Kevin, he's one of our very best friends. He's been a family best friend for years. And he started as an inspector, but he was a paramedic beforehand. So he was super thorough. He was great with people, and he loved check boxes. He needed to make sure he did everything that he was supposed to do. He was the perfect inspector. He recently retired. He's got like a fun desk job now. Inspection is hard. So we plan to, did you know that the average home inspector stays in that role about 7 years? And then it's just too much for your body.
I think I heard something like that. Yes, that it's kind of like a short-lived career for most people who don't really understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, it's too much. So I definitely plan to continue to hire. There's other avenues of our business that we want to expand. We've thought about, it's a fine line between providing the service to inspect and then providing the service to correct. So we know a lot of our sewer scope, for instance, clients just need the line to be jet out. Like it just needs to be cleaned, and then we can inspect it better on the inside. Well, sometimes it's just difficult to find someone to jet the line out quickly. So we thought about, okay, how about we just have a company that we can jet the line, then we go back and rescope, so that's where our mind kind of goes. And I say we, because I drug my husband into this business a couple of years ago and said, please help me run this, help me run this business. And so we thought about that. As for geographical area, we're just organically expanding our tent pegs as we feel like it's necessary. So right now, if word of mouth takes us to, like, our inspectors live kind of everywhere. One's in Oak Park. I'm in New Baltimore. One of them's in Waterford. Like we're kind of everywhere. But if a home inspection takes us to Ann Arbor, if it takes us down to Monroe or up to, Port Huron, we've done that. We've done an inspection on a business in Caseville. So if we organically spread our tent pegs and get bigger, like geographically, then that's wonderful too. But one of the things that I have to remember in this expansion is when our team grows, is everyone comfortable with the hard work they have to do? Because we can all do hard things, right? Mm-hmm. Is everyone comfortable with the amount of effort that it's going to take? We want to expand our environmental services as well, well and septic and the whole thing. But to really hone in and expand that, or to really hone into our commercial division and expand that, it's going to take a lot of manpower. So to be able to hire people, I know my boundaries. I still have 3 tiny children at home, and I have to have energy for them when I get done with work, So any goal that we have to grow outward also really has to serve us inward. Thank you, Amy. Has to serve us inward. So that's our plan. Grow organically, continue to hire, and make sure everyone's on the right seat in the bus, and then grow our other services or our other divisions as the demand allows, I think.
So that's a great plan. And I love listening to you talk about, throughout this conversation you've been mentioning, I can tell that you take the time to get to know your people. Like you said, put them in the right seat on the bus. Are they getting tired? Are they, is the performance, are they getting to that? Are they not going to have longevity? So it's great that you're really keeping that heartbeat, because I think as a business owner, that's so important. You have to be in tune with your people so that you can continue to grow, right? Your business will continue to grow because they're a reflection of you. So clearly you have an amazing hold on all of that, and just a brilliant businesswoman. So I commend you for that. And I just want to thank you again for joining me today, Jaymie, and for sharing your expertise, your background, most importantly, how you're protecting buyers and helping them to make a sound financial decision, because it's huge. And I'm sure our listeners are going to want to know more about how they can reach you. So please let us know the best way to get in touch.
Yeah. Number one is always just our phone number. It's 586-434-0243. Leah runs the show. She's been with us almost 5 years now. So either call or text her or send her a video of the thing that you see in the house that you have questions about. You can find us on our website at elevatemichigan.com. And then all the social medias, Elevate Inspection Group.
Okay. And all that's going to, of course, be in down below, and everyone will be able to find you. So thank you again so much for sharing today, Jaymie. It's been such a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you, Holly. It was awesome.
It really was. And Jaymie and I want to thank all of you for joining us today as well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like our episode, and tap that bell for notifications, so you're the first to know when episodes of the Onward and Upward podcast are posted. And until next time, everybody be blessed.